So, I've been hearing about this thing called 0xSplits and decided to do a deep dive with y'all for beginner concepts to advanced. So, in this video, you will learn the following. 1. What is it, main features, and why? We'll explain things like hyperstructures. 2. We'll do a no-code tutorial. 3 is I'll explain what liquid splits are, and I'll go over those as well, which is basically doing splits with NFTs. Number 4, we'll do a coding tutorial. And number 5, we'll go over security best practices. So if specific parts interest you, feel free to jump into those sections. Without further ado, let's get into it. So number 1, what is it, main features, and why? So if we go to 0xSplits.com and just go to the websites, it basically explains that 0xSplits is an open source, audited, non-upgradable set of contracts that is efficiently split on-chain income. Whenever a split receives income, each recipient gets their share, simple enough for friends and secure enough for nons. So you can basically split payments on ETH or on any EVM compatible chains. You can also split ERC20 tokens. So for example, if you have stable coins like USDC, you can split those as well. What makes 0xSplits stand out from a lot of the greedy opportunities companies in Web3 space is that it is a hyperstructure. So if we go over to this blog by Jacob.energy, and he will actually explain here, he's actually a co-founder of another hyperstructure called Zora, but here he defines hyperstructure as crypto protocols that can run free forever without maintenance, interruption, or intermediaries. In addition, he provides some other features that it's unstoppable, it's free, valuable, expensive, permissionless, positive sum, credibly neutral, and so on. So what are some popular examples? Well, the most famous hyperstructure is Uniswap, which is in fact the most popular decentralized exchange. So if we go to uniswap.org, and I launch my app, I basically am able to exchange Matic for another token, like wrapped ETH and so on. But if we go to, I think it's info.uniswap, you'll notice that it has a total value locked of about almost $4 billion. And in fact, the daily trading volumes are in the hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. So basically in August of this year, actually last year, the daily trading volumes are in the billions of dollars, which is very impressive. So how do these hyperstructures work in practice? Well, think of these as permanent packages on a blockchain that we as engineers can use. And some engineers decided to deploy hopefully well-tested non-upgradable smart contracts on a blockchain like Ethereum or Polygon. And then people like me and you can start using it. So why is it built? Well, splitting payments across many receiving addresses is a common problem, and a few people in the open source community decided to step in and basically write a bunch of code that we can all reuse. So with that said, let's go over the tutorial. So I'm here basically navigated back to 0xSplits, and I'm going to open the app. A few things to keep in mind here. I am already on the Polygon Mumbai net, and I have some Matic. So if you basically you want to make sure you have MetaMask. If you do not have the Mumbai Polygon net, you basically go to Mumbai, you search for it on chainlist.org, you click on testnet, and you'll be able to connect your wallet and add that testnet to MetaMask. And then if you don't have any Testmatic, you just go to the faucet.polygon.technology, and you should be able to add some test Polygon to yourself. So navigating back towards the app, there are a few options here. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new split. And here there are 3 options. So the first one is mutable, and liquid. So the mutable one is recipients cannot be updated once deployed. As the name implies, mutable, the recipients can be updated by the controlling address. And liquid splits is an interesting one, which we'll do a little bit later. Recipients are represented by transferable NFTs. In this case, it's 1155 ERC NFTs. So we're going to do the immutable one to start with. And in fact, let me find my 2 addresses that I'm going to reuse. So the first one is this one, and these are test addresses. In production, I do not use these at all, just so that I'm not confused. And here let's say we're going to split remaining, or we're going to split evenly. And another thing to keep in mind is that there's a distribution incentive. Why is it needed? Well, if you think about it, there are 4 steps in 0xSplit process. 1 is to create, 2 is to deposit, 3 is to distribute, and the 4th one is to withdraw. So distribution is step 3. So right now we're going to create the split. Then we need to have somebody basically deposit some funds into the smart contract. And the distribution part, Well, that method, well, that basically costs a little bit of gas to execute. So basically, in order to incentivize users to distribute the ETH or the Polygon Matic or whatever you're distributing, you can basically add a percentage of the full amount to be given to the person that is hitting the distribute button. In this particular case, 1% seems to be the standard, but you could also make this 0% if you want, or go up, basically, excuse me, here, go up and down if you want. So now that is done, yeah, we have our addresses here, and we can click Create Split. Again, we are in a Polygon Mobile testnet, and we're going to pay some Testmatic to confirm this transaction. Again, as I mentioned before, this also splits ERC20 tokens, which is really cool. And now it is created. So now a subgraph is being indexed. So basically our updates are, basically the website is updated very quickly. And that is done. So the next step is to deposit. Remember, the first step is to create the split contract. The second step is to deposit the funds. So here we could do that very easily. And I'm going to add 0.022. I'm going to deposit the Matic there. And again, in step one, I basically picked 2 recipients. However, if you look at their documentation, currently they recommend that they can basically add up to 500 recipients, which is quite impressive. And the controlling address by default is the C8871. And in this particular case, I already added the balance. So there's a balance that can be distributed among these 2 recipients. And again, the distribution I picked is 50-50. So now we can click distribute, which is step 3. And again, as you can see here, I have to pay a little bit of gas for that. And as the contract that is clicking this distribute, I'm actually being paid 1% of that total amount just to cover the gas costs. So now what we want to do is I'm going to navigate towards this address 66F, which I believe is account 5 or 6. I believe it's account 5. Yeah, it's 66F. As you could see here, it's already shown up, and I'm going to refresh the page one last time. So here I can withdraw all tokens, which is basically here I have 0.011 Matic, which is a great sign. And this is basically step 4. As a recipient, this person here, or this wallet here, I can withdraw all tokens. And currently I have I don't have much, I have 0.2375. And if this transaction works, it should upgrade a little bit to have a little bit more Matic. We're just going to wait for a second. And as you can see, the address has been updated here. So this is a no-code way of doing a 0x split. Now I'm going to do another tutorial of basically doing it with a liquid split. Again, these are recipients represented by transferable NFTs. So in this case, they're going to give you ERC 1155 NFT tokens. And in fact, I'm going to use the same 2 addresses. You can add more recipients. You can split it among different percentages. So I could do, 35% here, 65% here. We're going to keep the distribution incentive at 1%. And in fact, it even has a CSV upload feature. I haven't used that, but I assume it works well. We're going to create the liquid split. I'm going to click confirm. And I'll show you that we're receiving the ERC 1155 tokens, and I'm going to transfer between the 2 addresses. So here we have 2 addresses, and one has 350 NFTs, the other one has 650 NFTs. My assumption is that represents about 0.1%. And what we're going to do next is we're going to go to OpenSea to make sure that these NFTs actually exist. And they do. Well, I think the image is going to be updated shortly. But basically, what I'm going to do next to prove to you that these are NFTs and that they work is I'm going to transfer from the 66F address to the 604 address. So let me just make sure I'm connected here. Just making sure this all works. I'm gonna refresh the page, and an image popped up. Sometimes for OpenSea, the metadata takes a little bit while, but in fact, because I'm on the 0xF address, I can transfer the NFTs, and this is the image, so that's pretty cool. And I'm going to transfer all 350 to the other address, and it's going to take a second to load and to confirm the transaction, and it is processing. So once this is complete, we'll go back to the 0xSplits and we see if the ownership stakes have in fact been processed. So this is complete, and this is before. We're going to refresh the page, and there you go. So that took a few seconds, but now at this point, I transferred 0xF, 350 NFTs, and now this address has 1,000 NFTs. At this point, you would basically follow the same steps of depositing, and then you can distribute and withdraw. But that is the same exact steps as the immutable splits, so we don't have to go over that. So now we're going to do the coding tutorial. So basically here, if you can navigate towards localhost 3000, I'm going to show you a demo of how the application works. Here we are already logged in using Rainbow Kit, which is a newer library that's very easy to connect wallet, and then MetaMask, and then I'm basically connected here, and I can copy address and stuff like that. And here, basically, I can create the split, which is the step one of the process. And here I already added the recipients and the percent allocation, which was the same as in the basically in the no code tutorial. And here we have the no code, basically the controlling address, which is the address that I presented in step one, which is, give me a second, it is account for 7. So yeah, this one over here. So this is the address that will be the controlling one. So here, I'll continue the demo. I'm going to create the split, and it's the same process as step one of the no coding tutorial. I'm going to click confirm, and then within a few seconds, hopefully a window alert will pop up, and then hopefully this will work. Let's give it a few more seconds. With with these blockchains, you just have to wait 10 or 15 seconds. But now that is done, and I'm just going to remember the last three letters, 9D0. Because I use the same controlling address, let me go back. I'm going to go back to home, controlling. I'm going to refresh the page, and I'm going to see 9D0. So basically, I created another split contract. So that is beautiful. So this is a very simple tutorial. Again, I'm creating the login screen or the login button, and you can log out as well, and the create split. And I'm going to basically, what I'll do is I'll share this, the GitHub repo in the description of the video. And now what we're going to do is we're going to navigate towards the code. So I also provided the README. We're using 0xSplits. Obviously, we're using next.js. We're using rainbow.com or rainbowkit.com. That's the library. Using WAGMI for React hooks. And for the UI, I also use chakra.ui. So with this library, with this repository, you're going to have to make sure you have Node.js and npm installed, and then you're going to run npm install, then you're going to run npm run dev, and you could also just see some of the packages that I'm using, basic React, splits SDK, and so on. Now, navigating back towards the actual code and like the documentation, if we go back to 0xSplits, and then we're just going to go towards the documentation. So there's two ways to interact with 0xSplits programmatically. One is using the smart contracts, and here they actually have deployed, they have, basically they're showing which contracts they've deployed that you can, me or you can interact with. So we have Ethereum, we have Optimism, Polygon, so on, and these are the testnet ones. And then the split main contract, you can see what are the methods that are available, and you can go to something like Etherscan and directly interact with this contract. The the easier approach is to use the SDK. So once you have, let's say, your React or Next.js app installed, you basically run npm install and you install the SDK, and then you look at what are the options of the SDK. In this particular case, I'm going to search for create split. This was the method I used to create the split. And now we can go back to our application. I'm going to do a little code walkthrough. And I'm back at the repository, or I'm using VS Code for this. And another thing to keep in mind, if you're new to this, this is a pretty standard way to basically to have Next.js applications structured. So you have the pages, and then you have underscore app.tsx. And here what I just did is I just added the chakra for the UI components. I added WAGME for the React hooks, and then Rainbow Kit was added for basically for the wallet. The main meat of the application is in the index.tsx file. And here I basically define the Mumbai chain ID. I need to create the split client, which is the first step in the SDK. I have it imported here. What are the things here? Here I'm also, I'm retrieving the signer and the provider. Basically that is a huge reason why I used Rainbow Kit, because we need to sign in and we need to get the signer and the provider, which I basically pass into here. Then these are the arguments that are required in the documentation. As you could see here, the recipient, the addresses, and so on. And if we go back to our application, I basically hard-coded these as the two addresses, and then the controlling address. In the GitHub example, you're going to have to fill in these yourself. So you're going to navigate towards the pages /index.tsx, and you're going to fill these in with your addresses. And then here, now we can go to the HTML part, and the connect button is the one that is responsible for this section. And here I have two options available, Polygon and Polygon Mumbai, which is what we're currently using. And I also added the create split button, which is this button right here. And we can basically just look at the create split button. Yeah, here I'm using the splits client SDK. I'm awaiting the response, and I'm just creating a window alert with the response. So it's a very simple tutorial, but it should get you started with playing with 0xSplits SDK, and you're able to log in and out. And you can add whatever the features you want, whether it's depositing, updating a split contract, withdrawing, and other stuff like that. So the last thing I want to cover is security. Now, when using another smart contract like Uniswap or 0xSplits, it's important to make sure that the contracts are audited and well respected. So in the case of 0xSplits, we know it's being used or integrated with many notable companies. Some examples are like Sound.xyz, OpenSea, and so on. So that's a great start. And if you're an experienced engineer, it's worth going through the code yourself. In the case of 0xSplits, let's navigate back to the smart contracts section and see what we have in store. So let's do that. And here I am back in the docs, and we're gonna navigate toward the smart contract section. And as you notice here, the contracts were audited by Macro. So Macro is a well-respected auditing firm, and you could see their websites, and they've audited other contracts. But the meat of the audit will be here in the audit report. So you could see they posted it on their website, or actually in their GitHub. And this is the report, which is really cool to see. So I'm going to skip the introduction and stuff like that. Here you could see which contracts that they've audited, methodology, and so on. I'm actually going to go to the issues. And here are the different levels: high, medium, low, and code quality. And I'm just going to step into some interesting parts. So actually you could see the code quality ones that they fixed with these particular Git hashes. So that is a very good sign. However, you see one medium issue here, and this is exactly why we're doing this. So let's read through this. So distribute ERC20 initiates an ERC20 transfer with split wallet to itself. This code assumes that proxy balance is the final amount that is actually got transferred. However, this result in a discrepancy when transferring tax on transfer token, a token that receives a full amount from the sender but a small amount on the receiver. This discrepancy caused Splitmain to think that it's higher balance than it does, which leads to the last withdrawn recipient unable to withdraw. So this is an interesting scenario. Actually, so some ERC20 tokens, so the most popular ones are like USDC and all these stable coins, right? But however, some of them, you can implement a feature where there's a tax on transfer. So when I transfer from one wallet to another, there's a tax. And then, so when I transfer from my wallet to another wallet, instead of one ERC20 token, it could be like 0.99. Let's say there's a 1% tax. So this is mentioning this example that in that particular scenario, that there could be an issue when you do distribute ERC20. I actually don't know any examples of a popular tax on transfer ERC20 token, but that's something we should be familiar with. So what I'm going to do next, I'm just going to go back to their code. We are going to go to Splitmain, and we're going to search for that method, distribute ERC20. And I already know that this is here, basically underscore distribute ERC20. And when I looked at this, this is the method that they reference. And if we go back to the audit, the actual line itself looks slightly different. There's no -1 in this section over here. So I actually don't know, maybe they changed it, maybe they updated, but they didn't update the audit. It's kind of hard to tell. But in my particular case, I'm not dealing with ERC20 tokens that have a tax on transfer. But if you do, and you're an engineer, you really have to go through the steps and make sure this works as expected. So you basically test it yourself on a testnet. You reach out to the team, whether they're on Discord or somewhere else, and make sure that you understand how this potential bug can affect your code and your smart contracts. Another thing you may want to do is you want to go through the code line by line. Now, this is beyond the scope of this video. However, I did find one blog. So if we navigate towards this blog, it's actually Solid Noob, interesting name, but the person that wrote it, his name is Nazar, and he has some interesting thoughts about how these methods are used. He basically goes over the most important methods, gives his own thoughts on distribute, create and split, possible alternatives. So I encourage you to check it out and just learn how this stuff works under the hood. So I think that covers everything. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you for listening and hope you have a good day. See ya.